And I do want to wrap with a result from Saturday that was both very surprising, but not surprising at all. Kentucky walked into the Swamp as a 6-point underdog in the Betfred Sportsbook, and they walked out with a 26-16 win in absolute dominant fashion. And so while this was a big win from an underdog, it also proves something to me. And when I say big, I mean meaningful win by an underdog team in an SEC night game. What it said to me is something that I've said on this show for years. I've said on all my social media, my Twitter, my whatever. Mark Stoops is the single most underrated and underappreciated coach in college football, and I don't even think it's close. Now, to be clear, Kentucky fans, deep breath. I know how much you guys and girls love him. I know how much he means to your school, how much he means to your state. By the way, the fact that he can go at John Calipari publicly like he did pretty much tells you everything you need to know. I know how revered he is in Kentucky. What I am saying is on a national scale, I do not think this guy gets nearly enough credit. So first of all, goes into the Swamp. As I said, let's talk a little bit about the game. One thing that stands out to me, I don't think Kentucky played anything close to its best game, and they certainly weren't at full strength, and that tells you everything you need to know. I understand that Florida's in a rebuilding year. I understand it's a first-year head coach, but they are coming off a victory over a top 10 team. This game was at home. It was at night, and Florida is going to be pretty good under Billy Napier this year. So the fact that Kentucky can go into the Swamp and get the W playing at less than 100%, one, shows you who Mark Stoops is, right? First of all, for people who didn't get a chance to watch the game, again, Kentucky wasn't great. This wasn't a perfect performance from Kentucky. They finished the game 70 rushing yards total, under 2 yards per carry. Now, some of it was some weird plays with Will Levis, kind of, lost yardage on runs and sacks and stuff like that. But they didn't completely dominate. They had a turnover. They had a missed field goal that would have essentially iced the game. So this was far from a perfect effort from Kentucky. But how did they win? They won by doing what Kentucky does under Mark Stoops. I thought they largely controlled kind of the physicality and toughness of the game. I know the stat sheet might not indicate it. Go ahead and watch the game. Beyond that, I thought the defense had a brilliant, not only just a brilliant game, but had a brilliant game plan to slow down Anthony Richardson. Now, if you listened to this show last week, you know I did not start the Anthony Richardson hype train. I thought he looked awesome. But when I started hearing people compare him to Cam Newton and Vince Young, I said, I don't know. People that I respect, I'm like, what are you doing? It's not fair to the kid, and it's not realistic. Well, Mark Stoops and Kentucky did a much better job than Utah of slowing Anthony Richardson down. Finished with 14 of 35 passing, 143 yards. That's 4 yards per completion. Florida did run the ball relatively effectively, but Anthony Richardson did not. 6 carries for 4 yards, not pretty for Anthony Richardson. But again, it speaks to who Mark Stoops is, the game plan that he put together, and the fact that Kentucky found a way to win in the Swamp. And as the game went final, I do think that's when I realized, we need to talk about Mark Stoops on Monday's Aaron Torres Sports Podcast. Because what stood out to me is that Kentucky went to the Swamp, got the victory, and what was surprising about it was how unsurprising it was at all. The fact that Kentucky goes to play Florida, they hadn't beaten them in 30 plus years as of about 5-6 years ago. They have now beaten them for the third time in 5 years, and nobody was the least bit surprised. And it speaks to who Mark Stoops is, and it speaks to the program that he has built. Think about everything. Listen, I know we have young listeners of this show, listeners of a certain age that maybe don't really remember life before Mark Stoops. This isn't a knock on Kentucky, but it wasn't the best football program, right? I mean, everything that Mark Stoops has done. And what I like about it too, it's been a slow, gradual build. This isn't the portal has helped the last 2 or 3 years, but it's not as though he did this in the portal era. It's not as though he got there and was able to flip the roster overnight. No, this was a gradual build from 2-10, back-to-back 5 to 7 seasons where you can't seem to get over the hump, back-to-back 7 and 6 seasons, a 10-3 season, a 10-3 season last year. And think about all the things that he has accomplished along the way. As I just said, Kentucky had not beat Florida in over 30 years as of 2018. They've now beaten them 3 times in the last 5 years. Kentucky had not beaten Florida in Lexington since the late 1980s until last week. Or excuse me, they had not won at the Swamp from the late 1970s until a few years ago. They've now done it twice in three. They don't do it for 2.5 decades. They've now done it twice in 3 trips to the Swamp. On top of that, you look at everything else, the 10-win seasons. We now have 2 10-win seasons in 4 years at Kentucky. Again, that was something that had been done 0 times since 1977. Like the mid-70s was the last time Kentucky won 10 games. They have now done it twice under Mark Stoops. And so to me, what it speaks to is the program that he's built. And the one thing I'll say is, if you watch that game on Saturday, there's no reason to think this thing can't keep going. This isn't like celebrate now because it'll never be like this again. First of all, you won 10 games a few years ago. You repeated it last year. I see no reason why they can't do it again this year. Now, I'm not going to be naive. I'm not comparing them to Georgia or Alabama or Ohio State. But at the same time, look at what we saw on the field Saturday. You have an NFL caliber quarterback that outplayed a guy that people were talking about as the Heisman favorite after week 1. You got some real dudes, right? We just talked about Notre Dame. Do they have enough dudes, enough X factors? Well, when Dane Key goes up, the freshman wide receiver, and rips a ball out of a cornerback's hands, Kentucky's got some guys there. And then on top of that, you just look at across the board. Again, this is a young team. I don't want to say this was supposed to be a rebuilding year, but they did lose a lot off last year's team. Go to the Swamp, get the win. And again, outside of Georgia, who on this schedule can they not beat? Who on this schedule? I mean, they don't play Alabama this year. Don't have Ohio State in the out of conference. I know Tennessee is going to be a challenge. I like Tennessee. I think they're really good. I think Ole Miss is good. I think Mississippi State is good. But I don't see the reason we can't have another 10-win season. And I don't see a reason why in the future, and it all depends on what college football looks like, this program can't get to its stated goal of win the SEC East, go to Atlanta. Not saying it's happening this year. Don't think it's inconceivable, though, for this program, the way that it seemed inconceivable even 4 or 5 years ago. And so it speaks to Mark Stoops. It speaks to who he is. And I'll just say a couple quick things before we wrap the show here today. One, I'm not smart enough to have really done the deep dive on the greatest program builders of my lifetime, but he's got to be in the short conversation, right? I say this all the time in college basketball about Jim Calhoun and my alma mater. A lot of guys have won at North Carolina. A lot of guys have won at Kansas. Jim Calhoun went to a school in the middle of the woods in the toughest conference in college basketball and built a 3-time national champion that won a 4th championship after he left. Well, what is Mark Stoops doing at Kentucky? He hasn't won national championships, but in the toughest conference in college football, he has gone in and built a team that is consistently winning 7, 8, 9, 10 games a season. Again, I don't know if it's the greatest program build of my lifetime, but it's got to be pretty darn close, right? And again, it's sustained. It's over 6, 7, 8 years. It's not having a 1 year where all the bounces go your way. Think about all the coaches that have had 1 year where all the bounces go their way. Butch Jones at Tennessee, Will Muschamp at Florida, Gus Malzahn at Auburn, Jeremy Pruitt, I think had a year like that a few years ago where about 4 or 5 games in a row, everything went their way. Mark Stoops has done this over 6 or 7 years. And so it's one of the great program builds that I've ever seen. And I'll also say this. I've said this before on Mark Stoops. I hope we enjoy and appreciate this guy, right? Because the one thing that stands out to me about college football, especially now in this 14 playoff era, is the idea that I think we get so wrapped up in the playoff. That's not what college football is and is supposed to be about. It's about the journey, about the experience, about the highs, about the lows. Yes, if you're Alabama, the expectation is to win every game. But for everybody else, it's a process. There's speed bumps. It's not easy. And I think we get so lost in who's in the playoff, who's out of the playoff, who was your playoff after week 2, that we forget about the programs like Kentucky, that we forget about a program like Oregon State, which made its first bowl game in 7 years last year. We forget about Arkansas that had an incredible run under Sam Pittman, 9 wins. They look awesome again this year. We forget about, UCLA that finished 8-4 last year. They're not going to make the playoff, but that was a great season for UCLA. That was a great season for Arkansas. That was a great season for Michigan State a year ago and Ole Miss a year ago, winning 10 games. And it has been a great run for Mark Stoops at Kentucky. So congrats to Kentucky on picking up the win. Now, listen, this is the SEC. It doesn't get any easier. I know that Kentucky's got a what should be a gimme this week against Youngstown State. It better be a gimme. Northern Illinois before they jump back into SEC play with Ole Miss in a few weeks from now. But again, just want to go ahead and give Mark Stoops credit. we spend so much time only talking about Saban, only talking about Ohio State, only talking about Georgia. We need to appreciate some of these other stories in college football as well.